She didn't just copy me.
She replaced me.
Not overnight. Not in a way anyone could clearly point to. But slowly, quietly, piece by piece, she stepped into my life like it had always been hers. And the worst part, no one noticed when I disappeared. It started small.
À comment ir?
A compliment there. You and Ava are so similar. That's what people kept saying. At first, I laughed. Because Ava had been my best friend for 6 years. 6 years of shared birthdays, late-night calls, secrets whispered at 2 a.m. She knew everything about me. My habits. My routines. The way I thought. So, of course, we seemed similar. That's what happens when you're that close to someone.
Right.
The first time something felt off was at a dinner. There were 6 of us. My boyfriend, Daniel, Ava, and a couple of friends from work. We were sitting at this rooftop restaurant, the kind with soft lighting and overpriced drinks. I remember talking about a project I had just finished. Something I'd been working on for months. Something I was proud of. And Ava smiled, leaned forward, and started explaining it. Not asking. Not adding to what I said. Explaining it, as if it was hers. At first, I thought I misunderstood. But then Daniel nodded. Not at me. At her. That's actually really impressive, he said, looking directly at Ava. Not once did he turn to me. Not once did he say my name. I laughed it off. I had to, because calling it out would have felt ridiculous.
Petty.
Like I was overreacting. So I stayed quiet. And Ava, she didn't even look at me. That was the moment something shifted.
Small.
Almost invisible. But once you feel it, you can't unfeel it. After that, I started noticing things. Little things. The way Ava began ordering the same drinks as me. Wearing similar outfits. Using phrases I used. Even my tone. It wasn't imitation in the obvious sense. It was refined.
Polished.
Like she took pieces of me and made them better.
And people noticed.
But not the way you'd expect. They didn't say she was copying me. They said I reminded them of her. Wow, you sound just like Ava. You two have the same vibe. You should collaborate more. Honestly, she explains things so well. That last one stayed with me. Because I knew what they didn't. The ideas she was explaining. They came from me. But here's the thing. I didn't stop her. I didn't correct anyone. I didn't defend myself. Because I wanted to understand. At first, I told myself it was harmless. That maybe she just admired me. That maybe I was imagining it. But deep down, I knew better. Because Ava wasn't becoming like me. She was becoming a version of me that people liked more. And then came Daniel. He didn't change all at once. That would have been too obvious. Too easy to confront. Instead, it happened in fragments. He started texting her more. At first, in group chats. Then outside of them. Then, without me. I noticed the way his phone lit up when we were together. The way he'd glance at it and smile. A different smile. Not the one he gave me. One night, I asked him, "Are you talking to Ava more lately?" Casual.
Light.
Like it didn't matter. He shrugged. Yeah, a little. Why? I shook my head. No reason. And that should have been the moment I pushed further. But I didn't. Because part of me wasn't ready to hear the answer. So I watched. I paid attention. I started connecting things. The late replies. The canceled plans. The way he started mentioning her casually. Like she was just part of everything now. And Ava. She never said a word. Not about him. Not about anything. But she didn't have to. Because I could see it. In the way she looked at him. In the way he looked back. And still, I said nothing. Because something about the situation didn't feel random. Didn't feel accidental. It felt intentional. And I needed to know how far it would go. So I stepped back. Just a little. I stopped initiating plans. Stopped texting first. Stopped being present in the way I used to be. And almost immediately, something happened. They stepped closer. Not dramatically. Not in a way anyone would question. But enough. Enough that if you were paying attention,
You'd see it.
and I was paying attention. Because by that point, I wasn't trying to stop it anymore. I was trying to understand it. And what I realized next was the part she didn't think I'd notice. Because Ava didn't just take my life. She took something she didn't understand.
She didn't just take my life.
She took something she didn't understand. At first, I couldn't explain it. It wasn't obvious. There was no single moment where everything clicked. It was more like a pattern. Something slightly off in the way things were happening. Because Ava didn't just copy what I did. She copied what people saw. And those are two very different things. The version of me she recreated. It worked perfectly on the surface. Confident.
Calm. Put together.
The kind of person people listened to. But what she didn't see was everything underneath that. The timing. The pauses. The decisions I didn't make. The opportunities one ignored on purpose. She didn't know how much of my life was controlled by restraint. And that's where the crack started. It showed up in small ways. Subtle, but noticeable. At work, she began speaking more. Taking initiative. Sharing ideas. And people liked it, at first. But then something shifted. She started saying too much. Too early. Too confidently. Ideas that weren't ready yet. Plans that needed time. Thoughts that, if left alone, would have worked better later. But Ava didn't wait. She performed. Because she thought confidence was the reason people trusted me. It wasn't. And slowly, people started reacting differently. Not rejecting her. Not directly. But pulling back. Just slightly. A pause before agreeing. A hesitation before support. A look between colleagues that lasted half a second too long. The kind of signals most people ignore. But I didn't. Because I had learned to read them a long time ago. And Ava, she hadn't. That was the first thing she got wrong. The second one was Daniel. At first, it looked like she had won. That's what anyone watching would think. They spent more time together.
Talked more.
Laughed more.
And me.
I was less present, less involved, less everything. If this was a story, this would be the part where I lost. But this wasn't that kind of story. Because Ava didn't take Daniel from me. She took the version of him that I allowed to exist. And that difference, it changes everything. Daniel had always been responsive, not dominant, not leading. He adapted to energy, to attention, to presence. With me, he was stable, grounded. Because I didn't give him everything. I gave him space, silence, moments where he had to come closer. That's what created the balance. But Ava, she didn't see that. She saw affection, attention, warmth. And she gave him all of it, constantly. And, at first, he responded exactly how you'd expect.
He leaned in.
Engaged. Enjoyed it. But then,
something started to change.
The way he texted her. The way he responded. The way he looked at her when she wasn't watching. It wasn't the same. Because without the space, without the distance, there was nothing pulling him in anymore. And Ava didn't notice. She thought more was better. More attention. More presence. More everything. But what she was actually doing was removing the tension. And without tension, there's no interest. I saw it happening in real time. And still, I said nothing. Because by that point, I understood something she didn't. This wasn't about taking my life. It was about sustaining it. And Ava, she was moving too fast to realize she was already losing. So, I did something that probably sounds strange. I helped her. Not directly. Not in a way she could notice.
But subtly. Strategically.
I started pulling back, even more. Letting her fill the space. Letting her become the center. Letting everyone see exactly who she was becoming. Without interruption. Because the more she stepped forward, the more visible the cracks became. And the more visible they became, the less I had to do. People started asking questions. Quiet ones. Careful ones. Has Ava always been this intense? She's good, but something feels off lately. I can't explain it, but she pushes too hard. They never said it directly to her. They said it around her. And that's worse. Because when people stop confronting you, it means they've already started adjusting to you. And not in a good way. That's when I realized
this was no longer about me.
Ava wasn't replacing me anymore. She was exposing herself. And she had no idea. But there was still one thing left. One piece of my life she hadn't fully stepped into yet. And when she did, that's when everything changed. Because that part, that was never meant to be copied. Because that part, that was never meant to be copied. Up until then, everything Ava had taken was visible, My habits, my personality, my relationships, things people could see, things she could study. But there was one part of my life I never talked about. Not with her. Not with anyone. Money. Not in the obvious way. Not flashy. Not loud. Structured. Layered. Carefully controlled. Most people thought I was just comfortable.
Stable job.
Predictable routine. Nothing special. And that's exactly how I wanted it. Because what they didn't see was everything running underneath. Investments. Silent partnerships. Decisions made months in advance. Moves that only worked because no one was watching. Especially Ava. But eventually, she got curious. It started with a question. Casual. Almost careless. How do you always seem so relaxed about things? I smiled. Shrugged. Planning, I guess. She nodded, like she understood. She didn't. Because planning wasn't the answer. Timing was. And timing is something you don't learn by watching. You learn it by awaiting. Ava didn't wait. A few weeks later, I saw the first sign. It was at work. A meeting. Small group. 4 of us. A new opportunity came up. High visibility. Fast moving. The kind of thing people jump on immediately. Ava didn't hesitate. I can take the lead on this. Confident. Immediate. Certain. Everyone looked impressed. I didn't say anything. Because I had seen this before. Not in her. In people who didn't understand what they were stepping into. The project moved quickly. Too quickly. Deadlines tightened. Expectations grew. And Ava. She pushed harder. More meetings. More promises. More visibility. From the outside, it looked like she was winning. Until the first problem hit. Small. Easy to ignore. A delay. Then another. Then something didn't add up. Numbers. Reports. Timelines that didn't align. Nothing dramatic.
Not yet.
But enough. Enough for people to start noticing. And when things move fast, small problems don't stay small. They multiply. Within days, what looked like confidence started to look like pressure. Then stress. Then cracks. Ava stopped explaining things clearly. Started overcompensating. Talking more. Defending more. Trying to control something that was already slipping. And that's when it happened. The moment everything shifted. A review meeting. Senior management involved. The kind of room where tone matters more than words. Ava walked in confident.
She walked out different.
I didn't need to be inside to know. Because I saw her after. Her expression. The way she moved. The silence. She didn't look at anyone.
Not even me.
That afternoon, the project was reassigned. Not officially. Not announced. But quietly. Responsibilities shifted. Emails changed tone. People stepped in where she used to lead. And just like that, she wasn't at the center anymore. No one said she failed. But everyone knew. And Ava, she felt it. That was the first fall. Not loud, not dramatic, but real. And the worst part, she didn't understand why. Because from her perspective, she had done everything right.
Confident.
Proactive. Visible. Exactly like me. But that was the problem. She copied the outcome without understanding the process. And now, she was standing in the middle of something she couldn't control. But she still didn't stop. Because people like Ava don't step back. They push harder. And that's when she made the second mistake. She tried to fix it.
Fast.
Visible.
Public.
The exact opposite of what should have been done. And I watched it happen. Every move. Every decision. Because by that point, I wasn't reacting anymore. I was observing. Waiting. Because there's a moment, in every situation like this, where everything can still be saved. A small window. A quiet exit. A chance to step back before things collapse completely. Ava missed it. She didn't even see it. And once that window closes, there's no controlling what happens next. And once that window closes, there's no controlling what happens next. Ava didn't slow down. She accelerated. Because from her perspective, the problem wasn't the project. It was perception. She thought if she looked in control,
Everything would be fine.
so she started talking more, explaining more, positioning herself back at the center. Emails got longer, meetings got louder, decisions got faster. Too fast. And that's where it broke. It happened on a Thursday, late afternoon. The kind of time when people are tired, less careful, more honest. There was a follow-up meeting. Smaller group this time. Not official, but important. I wasn't supposed to be there, but I was invited anyway, quietly. That alone told me everything. Because when people start pulling you back in, it means something has already gone wrong. Ava was already in the room when I walked in. She looked composed, almost too composed. The kind of calm that isn't real. And as soon as the meeting started, I understood why. She had a solution. Of course she did. She presented it clearly,
Confidently.
a way to fix the delays, adjust the numbers, realign expectations. On the surface, it sounded perfect. Until someone asked a question. Simple.
Direct.
Where are these numbers coming from? A pause. Just half a second. But it was enough. Because Ava didn't answer immediately. And when someone like her hesitates, people notice. She recovered quickly, gave an explanation. Detailed, structured, convincing. But something about it,
Didn't sit right.
not with me. And not with the others either. You could feel it in the room. That subtle shift. The kind where no one interrupts, but no one fully agrees either. And then, another question. More specific this time. Can we see the original data? That's when everything changed. Because Ava smiled. Just slightly. And said, I'll send it after the meeting. That answer should have been fine. But it wasn't. Because in situations like this, transparency isn't optional. It's expected. And delaying it, that creates doubt. Small at first. But doubt spreads fast. The meeting ended without conflict. No accusations. No confrontation. Just polite nods. Careful silence. But the energy was different. Everyone felt it.
And Ava.
She felt it too. I saw it in the way she packed her things. Too quickly. Too neatly. Like she was trying to regain control over something she couldn't hold anymore. That evening, the emails started. Requests for clarification. Follow-ups. Subtle pressure. Nothing aggressive. But persistent. And Ava responded. Immediately. Too immediately. Long explanations. Detailed breakdowns. Attachments. Trying to close the gap. Trying to prove something. But every response created another question. Because the more she explained, the more inconsistencies appeared. Tiny at first. Then clearer. Then impossible to ignore. By the next morning, it wasn't quiet anymore. People were talking.
Not openly.
Not directly. But enough. Enough for it to spread. And once something spreads inside a company, you can't pull it back. You can only watch how far it goes. By midday, she was called into another meeting. This one. Not optional. Closed door. No observers. But again, I didn't need to be inside. Because I knew what happens in rooms like that. There are no accusations at first. Just questions. Careful ones. Then more direct. Then specific. Until eventually, there's only one thing left to answer. Responsibility. And Ava. She wasn't prepared for that. Because copying someone's life doesn't teach you how to carry its consequences. When she came out, everything was already decided. You could see it in her face. Not panic. Not even fear. Something worse. Realization. The kind that hits too late. By the end of the day, access was restricted, responsibilities removed, communication minimized. Again, nothing public. No announcement. But everyone knew. And just like that, she wasn't at the center anymore. She wasn't even part of it. The version of my life she had taken
Collapsed. Completely.
And for the first time, she looked at me. Really looked. Not like a friend. Not like a rival. Like someone trying to understand what she missed. And I could see the question in her eyes.
The one she didn't ask.
Why did it work for you, but not for me? I didn't answer. Because the truth. She still wasn't ready to hear it. But she was about to be. Why did it work for you, but not for me? She never asked it out loud. But she didn't have to. Because by then, everything else had already been taken away. The confidence, the control, the version of herself she had built so carefully. All that was left was the question. And the silence. We were standing in the same office where just weeks ago, people compared us. Said we were similar.
Now.
No one said anything. Because there was nothing left to compare. Ava looked at me like she was searching for something specific. An answer. A reason. Something she could hold on to that would explain everything. But there wasn't a single moment. A single mistake. That's not how this works. Because Ava didn't fail because she copied me. She failed because she thought what she saw was the whole story. It wasn't.
And it never is.
I didn't speak right away. Not because I didn't know what to say. But because timing matters. Even now. Especially now. So I let the silence sit. Just long enough. Then I said, "You took the visible parts." Her expression didn't change. So I continued. The confidence. The way I speak. The way people respond to me. A pause. But that's not what makes it work. She frowned slightly. Not defensive.
Confused.
Because for the first time, she wasn't trying to perform. She was trying to understand. And that's a very different position. What did I miss? She asked. Simple.
Direct.
And finally,
Honest.
I looked at her. Really looked. And for a second, I saw the version of her I used to know.
Before all of this.
Before the copying. Before the replacing. Just,
Ava.
you missed everything I didn't do. Silence. That landed. But not fully. Not yet. So I explained. You saw me speak up, I said. But you didn't see the times I stayed quiet. You saw me take opportunities, but not the ones I walked away from. You saw people respect me, but not the moments I let them come to me. She blinked.
Slowly.
Because now, it was starting to connect. You moved too fast, I continued. You tried to prove everything immediately. Another pause. But most of what works in my life? I delayed it. That's when it hit her. Not all at once. But enough. Enough to break the version of reality she had been holding on to. Because everything she thought was strength was only the surface. And everything she ignored was the structure holding it together. She looked away for a second. Not in frustration. Not in anger. In recognition. And that's the hardest part. Not failing. But realizing why. I thought she started then stopped. Then tried again. I thought if I became that version, everything else would follow. I nodded slightly. That's what most people think.
And it's true.
Because from the outside, it always looks simple.
Clean.
Linear. Do this, get that. But real systems don't work like that. They're built on things you can't see. Timing, restraint, absence. The moments where nothing happens, but everything is being positioned. Ava didn't see those moments. So she filled them. With noise, with action, with urgency. And in doing that, she removed the very thing that made it all work. For a while, neither of us said anything. Because there was nothing left to explain. The rest, she would have to understand on her own. Just like I did. Eventually, she nodded. Not agreement. Not acceptance. Acknowledgement. And that was enough. She didn't apologize. I didn't expect her to.
Because this was never really about me.
And it was never really about her. It was about something deeper. Something most people never realize, even after it costs them everything. You can copy someone's life. You can take their habits, their words, their relationships. You can even step into their place. And for a while, it might look like it's working. But if you don't understand what's holding it together, you won't keep it.
And Ava.
She didn't just lose what she took. She lost the version of herself she built trying to hold it.
And me.
I didn't lose anything. Because I was never competing. I was just watching. Waiting. And letting the truth reveal itself on its own timeline. Because that's the part no one ever sees. And the only part that actually matters.